counting and counting game violence.
Oh my God. Go, run, run. Oh.
It was supposed to be just another campus debate, just a voice among thousands. But on September 10th, 2025, everything changed. This is the story of Charlie Kirk, the ambitious activist, the fiery speaker, the polarizing icon, and how one single moment turned his rising influence into a national heartbreak. So many questions remain. Who was Charlie Kirk really? What lines did he cross? And why did so many people mourn him while others blamed him? Stay with me. This isn't just about how he died. It's about the mark he left and the storm he ignited. Before we go on, if you believe in understanding truth beyond headlines, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because in the next few minutes, we'll peel back the layers, the rise, the controversies, the death, and the legacy. Let's begin. But fame rarely comes without friction. And for Charlie Kirk, that friction became the very oxygen that kept his name in the headlines. His young movement, Turning Point USA, gained notoriety with the creation of the Professor Watch List, a database exposing college professors who, in his view, promoted dangerous or left-leaning ideologies. To supporters, it was accountability. To critics, it was harassment. Professors reported hate mail. Some received threats. Suddenly, Charlie was no longer just a campus activist. He was a lightning rod. And the controversies only grew louder. On COVID-19, he mocked mask mandates, questioned vaccines, and called the pandemic response a tool of government control. On critical race theory and education, he denounced it as indoctrination. On LGBTQ rights and abortion, he spoke with a fire that rallied millions and alienated millions more. His rhetoric, sharp and unyielding, went further still. He promoted the idea of Christian nationalism, insisting that America was not just a nation under God, but a nation that should legislate under Christianity itself. He echoed Donald Trump's false claims about the 2020 election, stirring his followers with warnings of a stolen America. He spoke of the Great Replacement Theory, a phrase critics said emboldened extremists. Whether you agreed with him or not, Charlie knew how to dominate a stage, a podcast, a headline. He was unafraid to speak words others dared not say, even when those words carried consequences. But the higher he climbed, the more the opposition organized. His events drew not just eager supporters, but protesters at the doors, shouting him down. On campuses, posters went up, "Say no to hate." On social media, hashtags trended calling him dangerous, divisive. He wasn't just a speaker anymore. He had become a symbol. To his followers, a fighter who would not bend to political correctness. To his detractors, a provocateur who fanned the flames of division. And yet, somewhere in the middle, much of America was watching. Some in fascination, others in horror. Because whether they admitted it or not, everyone understood something. Charlie Kirk was not going away. His influence was growing, his voice was echoing. But here's the question that haunted his rise. How long can a man stand in the middle of fire without getting burned? Charlie Kirk was not only a political warrior, he was a husband, a father, a believer. In 2021, he married Erica Francevey, a former beauty queen, entrepreneur, and devout Christian. Away from the spotlight, they built a life few ever saw on television. His young daughter and his son just learning his first words were his pride. Friends say he spoke of them constantly. How he wanted a nation they could grow up proud of, how he feared the world they would inherit. The fire that raged in public softened at home into tenderness, intention, and fierce protection. At the center of it all was his faith. Charlie's compass was not just political strategy, but what he called eternal truths. He carried his Bible into meetings, prayed before events, and framed his mission in words that echoed from pulpits. For the nation, for liberty, for God. To him, America was more than a country. It was a covenant. And that conviction gave him both strength and sharp edges. Because when a man believes he is serving God's will, compromise becomes impossible. His family deepened his urgency. His faith hardened his defiance. Every speech, every clash, every headline was rooted in more than politics. It was rooted in what he believed was his calling. But conviction can be both a shield and a sword. And the sword that strengthened him in private would, sooner or later, cut into the public battles that defined his name. September 10th, 2025, midday, Utah Valley University, Orem, Utah. It was supposed to be a routine stop on Turning Point USA's American Comeback Tour. Another debate, another chance to spar with students, to prove his points, to win over some, to infuriate others. The courtyard buzzed with energy. By noon, thousands had gathered, young students, seasoned supporters, curious onlookers. Some came to cheer, some came to challenge, but everyone knew when Charlie Kirk took the microphone, the air always grew heavier, sharper. Around 12:15 p.m., the event was in full swing. Charlie stood tall on stage facing the crowd. His cadence was confident, sharp, part preacher, part fighter. Laughter erupted at some exchanges, tension built during others. People shifted, argued, leaned in closer. And then, between 12:20 and 12:23 p.m., everything changed. A single, deafening crack tore through the courtyard. One gunshot. Eyewitnesses would later say it echoed strangely, sharp, almost unreal, before screams swallowed the air. The shot came from the roof of the Losay Center, nearly 200 yards away. In that single instant, order collapsed into chaos. People ducked, some screamed, others froze. Security radios crackled. Shots fired! Shots fired! Charlie Kirk is down. He had been struck in the neck. One bullet, one target. No second shot, no other victims. Just silence, then panic. Onlookers described the scene as surreal, as if the world slowed. His microphone clattered against the stage. Supporters rushed forward. Security swarmed. Students sobbed, clutching one another, phones shaking in their hands as they recorded what no one could comprehend. Charlie was carried from the stage, blood staining the white of his collar. He was rushed to Timpanogos Regional Hospital, sirens wailing across Orem. For a brief, flickering moment, there was hope. Maybe he could survive. Maybe the wound wasn't as bad as it looked, but it was. By mid-afternoon, the announcement came. Charlie Kirk was dead. 31 years old. Husband, father, son. The bullet had ended not just his speech that day, but his entire life, and in its place, left a gaping wound in American politics. The shock was instantaneous. Within minutes, news alerts flooded phones across the country. Networks cut programming. Politicians scrambled to respond. Across campuses, churches, and homes, grief mixed with disbelief. And somewhere deep in the crowd that day, people whispered the question, how could this happen here? In the minutes after the gunshot, chaos consumed the courtyard. But behind the scenes, a new battle began, the hunt for the shooter. This was no ordinary crime scene. The FBI, local law enforcement, and campus police moved with intensity. Every angle of surveillance footage was pulled. Social media posts were scraped in real time. Witness accounts, some frantic, some chillingly detailed, were logged by the hour. What they found began to tell a story. Early that morning, cameras captured a gray Dodge Challenger rolling into campus. The driver, young, calm, seemingly unnoticed. He parked, walked the grounds. Hours later, other cameras caught him again, this time in different clothes. Witnesses would later testify he seemed to change his outfit, vanish, then reappear, as if he was preparing, as if every move had been rehearsed. The rooftop of the Losay Center became the focus. Detectives pieced it together. The shooter had positioned himself there, out of sight, waiting for the moment when Charlie Kirk would step into full view. One shot, then gone. By the time the first screams echoed across the courtyard, he was already fleeing into a nearby neighborhood. The suspect's name soon surfaced, Tyler Robinson, 22 years old, from southern Utah. No long rap sheet, no prior acts of violence. But according to family members, Robinson had spoken in recent weeks about his dislike for Charlie Kirk, a simmering anger that no one thought would turn into murder. By Friday, just 2 days later, the manhunt ended. Robinson was arrested and booked without bail. The charges were grave: aggravated murder, obstruction of justice, and felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. Authorities believe he acted alone. No co-conspirators, no organized plot. Just one young man, a rooftop, and a rifle that changed the course of history. And yet, the darkest question remains unanswered. Why? Was this political, ideological? Was it rage at Charlie Kirk's rhetoric, his influence, his faith? Or was it something more personal, a grudge festering in silence? For now, investigators tread carefully. The evidence points to planning, but not to a clear motive. And in that void, America was left to fill in the blanks, with speculation, with fear, and with grief. The aftermath has been raw, emotional, polarizing. A country already divided now finds itself reeling. Erica Kirk, his widow, stood before the cameras, her voice breaking, yet burning with defiance. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. No one will ever forget my husband's name. It wasn't just grief. It was a vow to carry forward his mission, to keep his legacy alive through Turning Point USA, and to ensure his movement would not die with him. A celebration of life was announced at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, a venue that holds over 63,000. Not for a concert, not for a sports event, but for a man whose reach had grown far beyond politics. His followers would gather there to mourn, but also to rally, to remember, but also to continue. Politicians from both sides condemned the killing. Statements poured in, prayers, tributes, promises of justice. Flags were lowered to half-staff. Some said this was political violence at its worst. Others warned this was only the beginning, that we are entering dangerously unstable territory. But with the grief came something darker. Misinformation exploded across social media. False claims spread like wildfire about the suspect's identity, his political ties, his motives. Videos misattributed, screenshots doctored, AI-generated images misidentifying people, all shared thousands of times before the truth could catch up. And then came the consequences. Schools, universities, workplaces, people lost jobs, teachers dismissed for controversial posts, journalists disciplined, even academics targeted simply for the way they spoke about Charlie Kirk. Some admitted sympathy, others said they had none, but in both cases, the response was swift, merciless. What began as a tragedy became something more, a battleground, not just in the streets, not just in the media, but in the hearts of Americans themselves. Because behind the mourning and memorials, a deeper question lingered. Was this the breaking point? Or just another line in the sand, one more sign of a nation tearing itself apart? So where do we go from here? What will Charlie Kirk truly be remembered for? For many, he was a champion, a fighter for free speech, a voice for the conservative youth, a defiant presence in an age of polarization. They see his death not as an ending, but as a spark, the birth of something even larger. For others, his legacy is far more complicated. To them, he symbolized the dangers of rhetoric that divides, the risks of demonizing opponents, the heavy consequences of pushing politics to its extremes. And then, the unanswered questions. What was Tyler Robinson's real motive? Was this personal, political, something deeper? Will the trial bring clarity, or only more conflict, more conspiracy, more division? What about security, in a nation where public figures stand just feet away from those who oppose them? How do you protect freedom of speech without silencing freedom itself? Where is the line between protecting civil liberties and protecting lives? And beyond that, what responsibility do public figures hold for the world their words create? Is it enough to speak, or must they bear the weight of what follows? One thing is clear. His death has not silenced discussion, it has amplified it. Across America, people whisper and argue, pray and protest. Where does political activism end and incitement begin? How do you mourn someone whose words you may have opposed? How do you reconcile love and hate, grief and anger in moments like this? If Charlie Kirk's life was built on shouting back, on refusing to be ignored, then in his death, millions are listening. And maybe, just maybe, his absence will force this nation to reflect, to face itself in the mirror, and to ask, what have we become? And what must we change? Thank you for watching. If Charlie Kirk's story made you uncomfortable, if it challenged you, angered you, or even brought you sorrow, know this: you are not alone. It's okay to feel many things at once: grief, confusion, frustration, even questions that don't yet have answers. This story isn't just about one man, it's about us. about the kind of nation we're building, the kind of conversations we're having, and the dangerous line we continue to walk between passion and destruction. If you truly want to dig deeper, don't stop here. Go beyond headlines, seek truth, question what you're told. Listen not only to the voices you agree with, but to the ones you don't. Because somewhere in that tension lies understanding. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think is the greatest lesson from Charlie Kirk's life and from his death? What do you believe his story says about America today? Share your thoughts in the comments, but let's make it respectful. Let's talk to each other, not past each other. And if this video gave you something to think about, something worth carrying forward, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps bring more stories like this to light. There is more to come. This story is not over, and neither is the conversation. Until next time, stay aware, stay compassionate, and above all, keep asking the hard questions.